Welcome to Celebrating Who We Are. I'm Tara Hack, and today I have the unique opportunity of interviewing one of my favorite professors in the radio and television production program. Alan Bernstein joined the faculty of Suffolk County Community College in September of 1974, and he just completed his 41st year on the faculty. He has also served as the assistant head of the Department of Communications, Radio, Television, and Film. He has had an active career in television sports production and a specialized interest in the area of thoroughbred horse racing. For starters, you've been here for 41 years. Now, how did you end up coming to Suffolk, and what are the changes that you've seen throughout the community?
It was 1974. I was not even 23 years old. And there weren't many jobs in television at that time because there was no cable industry, for starters. It was just really, really tough to land a position. One of my professors from my graduate program at Brooklyn College told me about this opening, and I interviewed for it in early August, which is awfully late. And here I am 41 years later. It's kind of an odd thing. The county back then was a really different place, though. I mean, the population was about 1/3 of what it currently is. There were a lot of farms. I was from the city. I was from Flushing, Queens. And coming out to Suffolk County was a big cultural change for me as well, but it's been a nice career here.
Now, your area in radio and television production has undergone some significant changes. Can you explain some of the differences that you've had?
The last 8 to 10 years has been a golden era for us. We've had a number of federal grants. We have had big donations. The set that we're sitting in today, it was donated to us by one of our alumni who worked at Court TV, and when they moved from New York City to Atlanta, they were going to destroy this set, which cost almost $100,000 to build. Instead, he saved it for us. Most colleges don't have sets of this quality. We've become an all HD facility. We have an all HD television remote van that we do live sports events and graduation ceremonies and concerts with. We've upped our game. We have much more capability than ever before, and we're able to provide a phenomenal experience to the students who come through the program, and that in turn has helped them toward building careers of their own.
You have a second career in sports television production. How have you managed to juggle both?
Got my first paycheck ever from NBC Sports in '79, and I still work for them quite a bit, and that's almost exclusively on horse racing stuff nowadays. The work here is I teach Monday through Thursday. I'm pretty much done once the late afternoon hours hit. The students never get cheated because when you take the amount of time I've missed to work on special things, including Olympics and stuff like that, I still have less time away from here than the average person because I just don't get sick.
One of the things you're proudest of is your long tenure with your employees. Can you give us the details of how you got started in some of the things?
With my employers. It goes back to a thing that I always tell students. There is no magic formula for holding on to jobs. Show up all the time. Show up on time. Show up with a smile on your face. Do the best job you possibly can. And at the end of the day, look at the people you worked with and say, hey, that was cool, let's do it next time. And that is the only secret.
One of your specialty areas in TV is horse racing. Can you explain how you got into that?
It goes back to my childhood. I grew up, my family owned a candy store in Flushing, Queens. Horse racing was a big, big sport. My family loved the races. I went to the racetrack the first time when I was 4 years old. My uncle took me, and I loved it. And I loved it ever since. In 6 days, we visited 7 racetracks by car. It was the craziest trip.
Oh, wow.
I've always loved the sport. The story of how I got involved on the media side of it has to do with this place. A young man by the name of Rich Bond, who was a graduate of this program, had become the weekend sports producer for NBC Radio Sports. They needed a reporter to cover the Belmont Stakes. And he calls me up and he says, would you be willing to cover the Belmont Stakes for me? I said, would I be willing? Oh my God. That started me on about a 10-year career where I covered horse racing as a national radio reporter. Probably the greatest feat in the history of horse racing is that a legendary trainer by the name of Woody Stevens won the Belmont Stakes 5 years in a row. Horses that he trained won the Belmont Stakes 5 consecutive years, and I covered all 5 of Woody's Belmonts. I have pictures of myself interviewing Woody, who's long since passed. He was like in his 70s at that time. And then in '84, I heard about the creation of this thing called the Breeders' Cup, which was a new concept in horse racing. Basically the idea of like a 1-day, and now it's become a 2-day Olympics of horse racing. In every category, a world championship event. And a friend of mine who I knew at NBC put me in contact with the great John Gonzalez, who was the producer of the first Breeders' Cup ever. I met with him, and before I knew it, I was working for John Gonzalez on the Breeders' Cup. And I've worked on NBC's horse racing ever since. That, of course, has dovetailed with ownership of racehorses. I owned horses for about 15 years. I was a minority partner. My friend Kenny was the majority partner. And we did well, and I have in my home a virtual horse racing museum. I mean, on one wall I have over 40 winner's circle pictures of horses that I owned. It's a very emotional thing when you own a horse and it wins, especially if it's a horse that you purchased before it ever ran a race. So it's like your baby from the very beginning. And when it wins its first race, you're a kid. It's unbelievable. The emotions that you have, it's all you ever hoped for. It was a blast.
So now I've heard that you've won National Emmy Awards, including other honors. Can you explain what that was like?
Well, one of the Emmy Awards really means a lot to me, and that was 1992, when the telecast of the Breeders' Cup was named the outstanding live sports telecast of that entire year. And obviously, being a horse racing event, it was very close to me. The other two were for Olympics, and when you get an Emmy on the Olympics, it's one of a team of hundreds, you know. Back in the 90s, I produced a harness racing, horse racing series for Sports Channel that was seen in 40 states in the United States, and that series went on for 6 years, and one of those years, it got a nomination as the Outstanding Live Sports Series in the New York area, in the New York Emmy Awards. And to my knowledge, that might be the only time ever that a horse racing series was nominated in that category. It was real cool, and I was the producer of the show, so it was a real thrilling thing to have that happen, that's for sure.
Recently you worked on the memorable telecast of American Pharoah, becoming horse racing's 12th Triple Crown winner of all time.
Yeah.
What was that like?
To put it in context, it was great beyond words. Drew Esikoff, who directed the telecast, I remember hearing him say, this is a man who's directed countless Super Bowls and everything else. And I remember him saying after we got off the air that all the Super Bowls couldn't compare to that experience. That'll give you a sense of the emotion that was in our TV truck. It was crazy.